Hello and welcome to another episode of the Afterburners podcast. I am your host, Sam Niedermeyer. With me, as always, the ever beautiful, ever bubbly Bobby Koch. Bobby, how you doing today?
That's a new one. Bubbly, beautiful Bobby. I don't mind it, actually.
The alliteration was just striking me, and I felt like I had to deal it to you.
It feels very summery, too, which is appropriate because this is our, I think, first episode in summer, right?
Officially
summer was
officially
last week.
summer, yeah, it's correct. Yeah, because our last episode was last week, and we recorded on the 20th, and the first day of summer is the 21st.
Yeah, so welcome to Summer Afterburners, everybody.
Hey, by the way, a lot of big primaries going on in our city today.
That's true.
I understand you voted.
I did.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Excited?
And I sent out a tweet because I think everybody should vote, not to get super political on the pod because that's not really what we do here. But if you're going to complain about politics on Twitter, regardless of what your viewpoint is, go ahead and vote.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty inspiring, pretty fun. There's a couple of races that are really interesting, but listen, we'll cut this short in terms of the politics, but a lot of fun primary races going out across the country. What's more fun though is Bobby is wearing shorts today, and it is great. After all of your hoopla and talk about no shorts this and no shorts that with Derek last week, guess what? You got shorts on, and I'm excited to see that.
It's true. I decided that my legs needed showing off. No, really, I don't have a strong take against shorts. What I didn't explain well in last week's podcast is I'm just lazy and my pants are always kind of just out because I wear them all the time. My shorts, I have to like dig through and find them and make sure they still fit. But it's hot enough that I need to wear some shorts.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be around summertime. I mean, it's going to be super hot in July here shortly. But we are recording on the 26th. Obviously, listen to this. It's June 27th, 2018. We've got a great show for you today. We actually have a special guest today. He is the host of Falafel House, and he's the co-host over at
Dynasty Wall Street.
Give me a second. Yeah, sorry, I fucked that one up. But yeah, so I'm glad you're wearing shorts. This is a great day to wear shorts. It's gonna be hot the rest of the week, and super excited for our listeners to hear this show. We got a great show for you today. Today we got Kevin Cotillo. He's the Falafel House host. He's also the editor over there at the falafelhouse.com. Dynasty Wall Street co-host. And finally, he's also a writer with Dynasty Trade Calculator. Holy cow, that's a lot of credentials. Kevin, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. I'm glad you got all that out. I've been dying to come on here so I could ask you, how's your asshole? Is it okay? Like, thank you for the warm and welcome, but really, I know that's what everyone else who's listening to the podcast is worried about.
The asshole's great. I actually have my final follow-up tomorrow. I was just telling Bobby about it. I'm super excited. Luckily, there hasn't been any problems since this was going on about a week ago. No blood. I'm wearing shorts again. I mean, no comfortable or no. I'm wearing jeans again, I should say, not shorts. It's doing great. Thank you so much for asking. That's the sweetest thing anybody's ever asked me.
We're gonna reward him with some nice baked goods with nuts because he loves nuts in his mouth after his appointment.
That's right. Oh man,
where do you stand there, Kevin? You a nuts fan?
You know what? I listened to that and I was confused because I think nuts in the right spot are obviously okay. I think you got to have if you're gonna put nuts in something, it's got to be in the right spot. So with baked goods, I'm okay in certain areas. Like I like a good carrot cake with a couple of maybe walnuts on top. That's pretty good. Something along those lines.
With some walnuts, huh?
Yeah, a little on top. Anything like that, but no, I think in the right spot. I particularly like an oatmeal raisin or a chocolate chip for cookies. But
what about that macadamia nut? You a fan of that?
So I don't really like the white chocolate, man. I stay away from that. It's if it's white chocolate, to me, it's not really chocolate. So
am I the only one that likes the white macadamia nut cookie?
I think so.
Right.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Maybe that's did you guys Twitter poll that?
It's true.
Sorry, what was that, Kevin?
Did you guys Twitter poll the white macadamia nut and whether or not that
So
I don't think we did actually.
We didn't.
I don't think we did.
It's a miss.
We'll have to do that next time. So we'll have to do that next time. Kevin, super excited to have you on the show. I understand that you are a big Patriots fan. We understand that. So we're excited to talk a little Tom Brady. And then your other good friend, Eli Manning, we're going to discuss him a little bit as well. I know Bobby couldn't wait to bring that up. We're also going to talk some more other older QBs that perhaps could be in way for some upside, maybe some downside or regression coming up. And finally, we'll talk a little bit about what you're doing over at Falafel House. But before we get started, Kevin, drop us where we can find you on Twitter or anywhere else on the web out there so that people can get connected to you.
Sure. I am at Wally Central on Twitter, and you can find me, either on Twitter or falafelhouse.com. I do as you mentioned, I do all the editing there. So anything you see there, we have the podcasts. You can find Falafel House or Dynasty Wall Street on any of the places you get podcasts. Dynasty Wall Street's actually on the Dynasty Trade Calculator feed. So if you're looking for Wall Street, check out the Trade Calculator feed and you'll find us. We're there. You don't have to listen to the Trade Calculator if you don't want. Just download their episodes so that we get credit for bringing people in. But other than that, yeah, that's it. You can hit me up on Twitter. Bobby and I have recently started Twitter debates, so I'm loving it. He's a good guy to debate on Twitter. So it's been a lot of fun.
Those are both great podcasts. Just to give my endorsement to both Falafel House and Dynasty Wall Street. They're in my regular rotation, so everybody should check those out. And Kevin's right. Just to we have a actual bet on Brandon Cooks, I believe, which was something like he won't reach 862 yards, something like that.
It's a nice random number. Yep, 872 I think is the number. Yeah,
and the winner gets to make the loser pay for a Fantasy Cares Eliminator next season, and also choose their Twitter avatar for a month. Was that it?
I believe that is correct. Yeah. So I'm expecting a Bortles something or other in my avatar when that happens.
Honestly, my go-to lately has been to bet people My Little Pony avatars because of it. So maybe I'll have to do that. But speaking of Twitter, you can find me at REKED Fantasy. As John Bosch likes to say, I am a Twitter tough guy. You can find me my work at Dynasty League Football, as well as Chew QBs. I'm a draft day consultant, and I'm a co-host here on the podcast you're currently listening to, so I don't know why I'm plugging it.
Yeah, this is the @Afterburners Pod. That's where you can find us on Twitter. Don't forget, you can find us on Podbean, Stitcher, and iTunes. Please, as Bobby said last week, go ahead and give us a review on iTunes after you download. Don't forget to subscribe
real quick.
Well.
If we get enough reviews, I know I'm pulling a playbook move from the Dynasty Dummies here, but if we get enough reviews, we are going to make T-shirts with our logo on them of the toilet paper on fire chasing a football, and everybody knows that you want to wear that. So give us about 10 reviews, and we'll make at least 10 T-shirts.
Should we even add in that my asshole's on fire, like kind of like how from what Kevin was asking about my asshole from last week with the ruptured hemorrhoid?
I mean, sure, that works, but
that's probably a better Stanley Cup shirt.
Yeah, that was definitely a better Stanley Cup shirt. And I think we've brought up your asshole being on fire quite enough for one podcast.
By the way, can I just say that I know that you do the editing, and I have to tell you that Johnny Cash Ring of Fire was just a thing of beauty of choice for music. Just
appreciate
absolutely that. Brilliant.
Our friend who was in some similar fantasy sports leagues, his name's Mark Walton at Walt Sanity. He recommended that we become the Afterburners, obviously for,
That was actually Mike.
I thought it was Mark.
Mike.
Okay, so it might have been Mike. Okay, my apologies to Mike. That at Mike Jarvis. And so I just thought, hey, Johnny Cash on fire sounds about right. By the way, I recently started listening to the Dynasty Wall Street, and I really like it. I think it's one of the better podcasts out there for fantasy football. You guys did a really good job, Kevin. Although I have to say, my favorite accolade of yours, my favorite credential, is your Twitter avatar, your Twitter profile picture with George Costanza there. Amazing.
That's my Scott Fishbowl picture. So shout out to Jake Anderson for putting that and those guys doing the Twitter Avies for the SFB. They're doing great work. So and
it's SFB Avi Makers on.
That's right. Or you can hit up at NFL Draft Talker, and Jake will lead you the way. I think those guys do good work. Him and is it Clint that's working with him on that?
Yeah, it's Clint.
Yeah, do great work, and $5 donation get you a nice Avi. So, but no, I was bringing up the Johnny Cash simply because of the Ring of Fire, the asshole on fire. I just it was a thing of beauty for me. I was very impressed with that. So.
Thank you so much.
That's our intro music every week. Although, if you want to be a sponsor of this podcast, we're more than willing to change our intro music so that we don't get in legal trouble. Ding!
Shameless plug out there. All right, guys. Real quick, we had some news come out. Kind of some weird news coming out, actually, around from the tri-state area. and maybe Bobby is happy to report this, but
I don't think I'm happy about it.
Janoris Jenkins is in Florida right now. Obviously, he's doing some training, and a dead body was found by a contractor in his basement.
And to tie it back to quarterbacks, this means that Janoris Jenkins likely is not going to be intercepting their passes.
And we're looking at Kevin right now. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, and he's got a basement that looks like there might be a dead body in there. Hopefully there's not. But what's your first take on this, Kevin? What's going on?
Just don't worry about what's behind me. Sal asked me to store something. Sal from our Falafel House podcast asked me to store something in my basement. I'm not sure what it is, so it's just but no, it sucks, man. I'm not a huge Giants fan, obviously, but I do think that anytime they find a dead body, it's not a good thing, right?
Just a weird, bad story, right, Bobby?
Definitely weird.
You've been following this. Shed us some light before we move on to the
there's not much to shed. They found a dead body while he was in Florida in his house in the basement.
Allegedly.
And apparently it had been suffocated. I haven't heard how recent the dead body is, and it's kind of weird because there's part of me that said, well, it could have just been in the foundation and the previous owner could have murdered somebody, sold him the house. But this sounds like it's a more recent thing. So my guess is Janoris Jenkins, regardless of whether he actually committed the murder or someone he knows committed the murder, just based on how Goodell has been with suspensions, Jenkins is probably getting some kind of suspension, whether it's for the season or a few games. So the only positive side of this I can see as a Giants fan, and I feel bad seeing any kind of positive side on murder whatsoever, is the Giants might have a high draft pick again next year, and then maybe they could select a QB of the future, except that Gettleman would still be their GM. So I really don't know. There's no positive on this. Murder is bad.
Yeah,
I don't know if you knew this, though. Saquon Barkley is going to score 50 touchdowns. I don't know if they should be fine.
Basically what you're saying is they're going to have a perfect season and win everything.
And except for the Super Bowl.
Right. They're going to go undefeated and lose to the Patriots, right? On a ridiculous helmet catch.
Oh, God. Oh, come on. I thought we talked about this before. You said you wouldn't bring it up.
There was a rule beforehand in which that catch would not be brought up. Bobby has obviously broken it. So speaking of Saquon Barkley, he is one of Eli Manning's weapons. Kevin, we've been pretty high here on the show on Eli Manning's weapons. Odell Beckham Jr. is obviously a top. To most of us, he's number one in terms of dynasty wide receiver. Some of us have him at 2, but that's neither here nor there. Great tight end in Ingram. Are we being too high on his weapons and too low on Eli? Or, I mean, we still kind of think Eli's this guy whatever. Because of his weapons, are we being too low on him? What do you think on that?
Yeah, it's crazy to me because when you look at where people have all his weapons, and yet Eli is down in the low teens or the high teens, I guess I should say, 18, 19, 20, depending on where you are for this upcoming season. That's nuts to me. I don't get it. I think Eli's going to have a much better season than people think. I don't think that he's retiring either. I mean, I know that there was talk of one of these younger guys coming up or them drafting someone at 2, but they clearly didn't. So I think you're going to see Eli in that offense for another few years, and in my mind, that's worth a lot in dynasty fantasy because those weapons are probably not going anywhere. Say what you want about Odell Beckham, but I don't think he's changing teams anytime soon. And I think that with that and a young Ingram, yeah, absolutely. I think we're way too low on Eli Manning in the dynasty community.
Yeah, and don't forget they had Shepard too. That's your boy.
Yeah, that's the only jersey I own, and I agree with what Kevin said. And additionally, I think people are forgetting that Pat Shurmur has kind of made himself the QB whisperer, where he turned Bradford into someone that was pretty relevant for a while before the knee injury took him down. And then the knee injury took him down mid-season, and he went, hey, Case Keenum, you've never really been that great in the NFL, but I'm going to turn you into a serviceable quarterback. So I'm pretty excited about what Pat Shurmur can do for Eli. I do still want the Giants to have a long-term solution, just because Eli's play has been declining. But I've come to terms with the fact that this is going to be our offense for at least another 2 or 3 seasons, probably.
Yeah, Shurmur was the coach over in Cleveland, too, when they had it wasn't Charlie Fry. Who was it, Kessler?
I think it was Hoyer's season.
Hoyer, that's exactly who it was with Hoyer. Kevin, do you think that, maybe not necessarily like offensive coordinators, coaches, like consultants, like that play with quarterbacks actually do influence the maybe not necessarily, maybe the unseen stuff, but definitely in fantasy numbers. Do you think that they can kind of influence a quarterback's numbers?
Did you watch Jared Goff last year?
Great point. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it can make a difference. And there's two ways that I think it can make a difference. The first being that exactly like what we said, when you replace a terrible head coach like Jeff Fisher with a guy that is innovative and can get people motivated and can work to a quarterback's strengths like Sean McVay did with Jared Goff, I think that's one way. But another way is consistency, right? You look at the Patriots, and obviously I'm going to keep falling back there, but we're in how many years now of this particular system with this quarterback and this coach. If you can have a system that's consistent and plays to strengths, and year over year the quarterback just gets more and more familiar with that system, I mean, it's unbelievable. Look at what we talked about with Matt Ryan and Shanahan. In the first year, he was marginal at best. Second year, boom, like he was top notch. And now obviously he lost it again last year because, so there's definitely keys there, whether it's consistency or innovation, I think are the two things. But yeah, they can have a big impact on fantasy, in my opinion.
I think Sam just wanted to get his obligatory mention, apparently, now each week of Jeff Fisher in there. He really likes to somehow bring up Jeff Fisher on the pod.
Hey, man, I love Jeff Fisher. Not because I think he's a great coach, but because I just love crapping on him whenever I get a chance.
By the way, speaking of the Falcons real quick, because this is QB related, I heard the way to have your franchise quarterback do well is to change your offensive coordinator every single season, because supposedly there are rumors that the Falcons are talking about firing, and I'm probably going to butcher his name, but that's also on brand for us. So Sarkisian, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, you got it, yeah.
But yeah, they're talking about firing him. So, just cycle through them every season. No stability is great for your quarterback, right?
It's brilliant.
So speaking of stability, right? So like Shermer's, this will be his first year, right?
Yep, first
I didn't
year
get that
as a
right.
head
Yeah,
coach.
it'll be this is his first year there. Do you think that there's going to be any type of learning curve? Obviously, Eli Manning's a veteran, right? But like, there's got to be some type of learning curve, right? Or is that just the wrong mentality?
I think there is. I mean, like we just talked about, consistency is key, but Eli Manning's also a very experienced quarterback. He should be able to pick up most systems, at least, enough to the degree where they can have a fairly extensive playbook in the beginning and continue to add stuff week to week and be able to game plan. So I think you'll see a better Eli Manning at the end of the season than you will at the beginning, but I don't think it'll be, a full year and a half to 2 years where he's taking to pick up this system. So it'll definitely make a difference, but it's also going from, what's his face being the
McAdoo
guy. Yeah, the guy who looks like a child molester being the head coach to someone who can actually put together a team strategy. So I think
could be the dead body in Janoris Jenkins' basement.
It's possible.
Yeah, it definitely. And just speaking as a Giants fan, McAdoo's play calling was either pass the ball to Odell Beckham. Okay, he's now hurt. Pass the ball to Evan Ingram. If he's double covered, have one of our plotters run for 2 yards, even if we need 5 yards. So it'll probably be slightly more complex play calling than that. So there's probably somewhat of an adjustment period. But Pat Shurmur has enough of a track record now of taking even not so great quarterbacks and making them at least mediocre that I'm confident that he can get at least a good level of play out of Eli.
Bobby, you worried about the offensive line?
Yes and no. It should be better than it was, especially because they drafted Will Hernandez, who I think is a good piece for them. But they still have Eric Flowers, who I will never be on board with. So for those who don't know, the Giants drafted Eric Flowers, I think about a pick or two before Todd Gurley. And that also just set off a chain of events because let's say we'll play out a what-if scenario. If the Giants take Todd Gurley, they don't take Saquon Barkley. If they don't take Saquon Barkley, probably a much stronger chance that they take one of the rookie quarterbacks this season. Then you're looking at an offense with a rookie QB, Odell Beckham, Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, Todd Gurley, and yeah, just lights out for the rest of the league, I guess. But, I'm not bitter at all.
That also assumes they're going to finish.
Let's be honest. Yeah, let's be honest.
It does assume they finish with the same record. You're right.
And if they take Gurley, do they really have that much? I mean, their offense looks a little different. They probably have, yeah. I don't think their records end up being the same. So
yeah, I'm just bitter about Eric Flowers, and I find every opportunity.
That's fair. That's fair. They were they wanted the other lineman, right? I believe. And wasn't that the year that the video surfaced of what's his face smoking out of the gas mask?
Yeah,
yeah,
Laramie Tunsil.
Yeah, Tunsil, and they were going to take him, and then they got all confused apparently because they didn't have a backup plan, and they took Flowers. Is that the same draft? I think that it. I think
you're right, and I think the following year they wanted Forrest Lamp, and the Chargers like just beat them to it or something. I don't know.
Surprisingly, that's not a Gettleman move. Like, oh, he's wearing a gas mask. I don't like that because all the data guys say I should take him anyways. And he has
Gettleman wasn't the GM yet.
No, I'm saying like if he was, he would have done that.
Yeah, possible.
Kevin, real quick, last thing on Eli Manning. You said that he's basically, well, I think you're right. Top teens, high teens, I'd say right around 20, 18, 19. Where do you think? You kind of floated the idea that perhaps he should be rated higher. Where would you put him at?
I think he's probably top 15 for this year, right? I'm not talking dynasty rankings. For this year, I think he'll be in a top 15 quarterback. Dynasty rankings, you're probably going to float him back a few spots because of the youth, but I tend to play dynasty with a 3-year window in mind for the most part. So he's still a guy that I would target because I can get him later for cheaper and things like that. But yeah, for this year, I think he'll be in the top 15. Stuff. There's the quarterback's deep, man. You say that, and then you start looking at guys. You're like, well, where am I going to put him actually?
Yeah.
So
it's much deeper than it used to be after the past 2 or 3 classes. Because for a while it was pretty shallow, but these incoming rookies and the sophomores and even some of the quote unquote, I guess, juniors is what we'd call people in their 3rd season, but they're definitely impacting the depth of the quarterback position, what we think of it.
But there's on the other side, though, if you have Eli Manning and you're in a win now mode, you could probably get him for cheap, right? Like you could probably get him from the other owner for cheap.
I actually don't know what he's going for, but I can't imagine it
would be
would
interesting
take.
To see what he is. Yeah.
I can't imagine it take much more than a late 2nd round pick at his highest value in a super flex league. I don't know. I'm just making that up.
No, I mean, I think you're right. Like, I don't think it's going to be anything. I don't think it's going to be anything like dramatic more than that. Like, I kind of like the idea if you're in a win now mode and you're looking for that second quarterback, or maybe you just want to show up the QB position, especially with like a couple of buys here or there. I think a late 2nd rounder for Eli sounds good. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I think that you could probably get away with that. I'm actually, while we're talking here, I'm kind of looking up his value on the trade calculator for DTC. Since I do write for them, I figured I might as well throw them some
love it
here.
Love it.
So we're talking 2018 picks, and his value's kind of right around let's see, maybe in a 12-team single quarterback, you're talking about, let's say, 302 roughly. So 3rd round will get you, is basically what the calculator is saying. Obviously, huge difference in a super flex format, but I would, if you're going to tell me that I can get Eli Manning for the 302 and I'm a contending team, I do that in a heartbeat.
Yep, with all those weapons, absolutely.
Although in a super flex league, I doubt anyone's selling him for 3rd.
No, in a super flex. So the calculator, as great as it is at dynastytradecalculator.com, you can actually change the settings, and his value jumps up to roughly where we're at, right around the 112 in a 12-team league in a super flex. So
it seems rather high.
That seems about right.
But to be fair, in a super flex league that I won, by the way, last year, I feel like I have to mention that I traded the 112 or what ended up being the 112 for Phillip Rivers, who I much rather have over Eli Manning.
Really? So you much rather have it? See, to me, they're very similar. I think that I'd put the value on them pretty similar. And I actually, there's a strange feeling of mine that Eli Manning's going to play for, like, I could see Phillip Rivers getting halfway through the season, getting beat up and being like, yeah, I'm all set. I got 12 kids. I'm going to go home.
Yeah, I will say that Rivers definitely does have more of that mentality where it seems like Eli's a bit more loyal to the team and the game, whereas Rivers is just like, yeah, I'm just here playing, earning my money, whatever, I don't care. But the thing with Rivers is, one, I think from what I remember from my superhero comparison article, he finished as a QB1 for like 9 of the past 10 seasons in fantasy. And he just is continually consistent. And he also has my man crush, Keenan Allen. So even though I am a Giants fan, I would take Rivers over Eli, but I would not go back to 2004 and reverse the trade. I still want Eli Manning for my real team.
IRL is different than fantasy. So great stuff on Eli, guys. So another person that's kind of related to Eli, I guess, just because of the Giants-Patriots little thing that you two have going on, is Tom Brady. And a recent interview, Kevin, I'm sure you saw this. I think the article was written by, well, I'm reading CNBC. It's by Scott Gleason. Came out and said that came out and said that Tom is basically thinking of considering retiring a little earlier than
45.
like the mid 45. Yeah, 45 is what he was thinking of. Are you buying that?
No. So I guess it depends on what you consider earlier. I don't think he's playing a 45, but I don't think he's hanging it up at the end of this year either. So I think he's going to end up. He's got 2 years on his contract. I guarantee he's playing the 2 years. I think there's a good chance that they extend him at one point at some point this year, and he gets a third year tacked on, and then you see him play that third year. And I don't know if you guys heard this, because this may or may not be just local media here in the New England area, but I guess there was also an Instagram post from Brady that he posted 45 at one point, like when someone had asked him about his when he was going to play, which is obviously 45. So like he's still floating that 45 out there in different. Look, everything you hear about the Patriots right now is complete and total garbage in my mind. Like it's all just so made up and so trumped up. And yeah, there's probably some issues. I'm sure guys were pissed off about the Super Bowl this year. I'm sure Brady's unhappy that he hasn't been extended in his contract, and he's mad that his little trainer boy Guerrero doesn't allow him on the team bus anymore or whatever. But at the end of the day, they're still going to come out and win 12 games. So, and they're going to be at least 12. I'll put it that way.
Well, you have to remember they might play the Giants at some point, and Saquon Barkley is scoring 50 touchdowns.
Right. So yeah, that's 6 touchdowns right in that game. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's going to be tough, but. I mean, Brady probably throws for 5 in that game. So, but no, I think for the most part, most of what you hear about Brady and Belichick and the discord in New England and all that is trumped up, and they're going to come out and they're going to have the same offense that they normally do. Hopefully the defense, as a fan, the defense is a little bit improved and they can drop 30 on people every week and actually win. And then, I think they're going to be fine. I was talking about this recently with some people that are fans of the Patriots, obviously, and first of all, we were laughing about overpaying for Nate Solder, so good luck with that one. But then we were just talking about how you look at the Patriots' schedule, and they have 6 wins built in the division. So for the most part, they're going 6-0 against the Jets, Dolphins, and Bills, right?
Yeah, the biggest joke of the NFL is that the Patriots play in the weakest division.
It's true. They do. At least for now. I like what the Jets are doing. Don't get me wrong. I actually think that the Jets, say what you will about Sam Darnold, I think he's going to be a decent quarterback in the league, and their defense, the players that they've picked on defense have been solid picks in my mind. So in a couple of years, they're going to be solid contenders. The Bills will always find a way to screw it up. And Miami, I have no faith in them. They should be in complete and total rebuild mode at this point. So
I just imagine Bill Belichick is like, even like, especially in the offseason, he's in like the secret lair creating these different stories and pawning them off to different writers in the New England area, in the Boston area, and like saying like, hey, like this guy's pissed, just so that like the rest of the world can talk about like how there's discord and there's all this stuff going on in the Patriots locker room. I seriously believe that.
I don't doubt it.
They rally around the fact that everyone thinks that they're not going to play well.
So like I said, we're at 18 years into this thing. You got to find ways to motivate these guys. You can't just play. I mean they're no longer the underdogs, so you can't go on that card anymore. So like, you just got to find ways to piss everyone off.
One of the things I think is really interesting about, so I used to be really big into redraft leagues. So like that was my thing, and now I'm getting more and more invested in the dynasty leagues. I like it a lot more. There was a span of maybe 6 to 8, maybe not 6 to 8, but definitely like about 4 to 6 years in which Tom Brady was perennially underrated when it came to the fantasy football game, and he was always like top 1 or 2 or 3 quarterbacks. He was just passing all the time. This year, what do you have him ranked?
If I'm doing a redraft ranking, he's probably, personal bias aside, maybe 3, 4, 5, somewhere in that range.
So he lost Brandon Cooks too. Is that hurt? Do you think that hurts you a little bit?
No, I don't think so, because
you're talking to the guy who thinks Brandon Cooks isn't going to get more than 900 receiving yards this season.
But that's so I actually like Cooks. Don't get me wrong. I think that he went to a terrible situation for what he does.
You might be the only one that I've talked to that's a Pats fan that likes Cooks, because I've also talked to our good friends Zach Reed and Kyler Reck, who are also Pats fans, and they're like, "Oh my God, I watched Cooks play. He can't play football. He should be home babysitting, offering his services for anything except football." Because I'm exaggerating, but they really just did not like Cooks and make it very clear that they didn't.
You guys remember the parade of supposedly talented wide receivers that have come through New England, with the exception of Randy Moss, who obviously just crushed it for 3 years and then he was garbage. But they keep bringing in guys and keep trying to make them fit into the system. And the wide receivers here are asked to do a lot and understand a lot. And a lot of these guys don't. And I can see that being a problem with Cooks. Not that he's not a smart guy and not that he couldn't pick up the offense, but some of the things that they may have been asking him to do weren't really his style, and maybe he didn't really buy into it. And ultimately, I just don't think that he was a good fit, which is why they had him here, and they decided it wasn't a good fit, and they moved on from him. And the fact
I agree with that. Whatever it was, you could tell if you watched any of the Patriots games that he and Tom Brady did not have good chemistry.
Yeah, exactly. And, so I think that I like Cooks, and I like him going to a different offense. I would have liked to have seen him in a different place than LA. I mean, I don't see it there. I don't see it there. Where are the targets coming from, I guess? I know we're sidetracking here. Now we're on Cooks all of a sudden instead of Brady, but we might as well get into it. Where are the targets coming from?
So, in my biased opinion, I think that Brandon Cooks is a much better wide receiver. And don't get me wrong, I actually wrote an article about how much I like Cooper Kupp. But he's a better receiver talent-wise than Cooper Kupp. I also think he's better than Robert Woods. And when I was researching for this, and you saw, people gave me all of this, Jared Goff's deep ball was not good. But according to advanced NFL metrics, and you can take any metrics you want with a grain of salt, he was slightly above average last year when he threw the deep ball. He just didn't throw it that often. So working in a whole offseason instead of being traded in the middle or whatever it was, or no, actually he did have the whole offseason to work with the Pats, right?
He got traded kind of later in the offseason though.
Yeah, he did it. He did have. I mean, he had training camp and everything, so I don't know that there's a way to lean on that. But
my hope for him is that he's extended, because I did some research that basically shows after you're traded or end up on a new team, as you might guess, your numbers tend to go down as you have to learn a new offense. But as you acclimate, it tends to get better. However, another thing that's kind of interesting, and now I'm just going off on a total tangent, but another thing that's interesting is after a second trade in your career, you generally return to career norms. And I have a theory that it's essentially you've been traded before, so you're not like, oh my God, I've just been traded. What's going on? I have to adapt. You've been through the process before, so you kind of have an idea of what it's like. And so my hope is that he follows the Brandon Marshall path of, okay, I'm on my third team now after being traded twice, and I'm going to return more or less to what my career norms are. And his career norms are putting up at least 1,000 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns.
We should find some type of audio that says Bobby Tangent coming soon and have a siren going off that says the Bobby Tangent, the Rec Fantasy Tangent.
Brandon, I don't like the term truther because it has a negative bias. But based on Twitter lately, I think I'm a Brandon Cooks truther because everyone seems to hate him.
I guess I just don't see. So I guess with his career catch percentage and what he's been able to do with the targets that he gets, granted, he has a very high yards per receiving average throughout his career. So I'll give him that. But I just don't see it in that offense. They threw the ball, 514 times I'm looking at right now. Is that right?
Very low. The thing is,
very low.
and I agree they want to run the ball with Todd Gurley, but I also think Sean McVay has a little bit of Belichick in him. And this is total speculation on my part, where I think he could be up a lot and he's not just going to run the ball down into the clock, because he seems like the kind of step on your throat coach who wants to run up the score. And I could be totally wrong about that. But I do also think Jared Goff has made some big progressions, not just from last year, but from what I've seen in general. And they did actually trust him to throw more in the second half, something like an additional 3 or 4 attempts a game, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it adds up over a course of a season.
It's like 64.
So it's not that far off base to say that maybe they want to pass the ball a little bit more. And I know everyone says, but what about Sammy Watkins? What about Sammy Watkins? I've got you covered. I have an article coming out for DLF soon all about why using Sammy Watkins as a defense of why you don't believe in Brandon Cooks is wrong.
Turn down for what?
Yeah, it's called Turn Down What, and it's based on the song Turn Down for What by Little John.
So, but 64, let's say, let me ask you this. Cooper Kupp, do you think he's kind of locked into the targets, or do you think his target share goes down?
I think his target share goes down slightly. I think the way I view him, and maybe you can confirm or deny this as a Patriots fan, I actually view him in and I realize this is a bad comparison because he always gets a large target share, but I view him almost as the Edelman to Goff's Brady.
Agreed. But but to me, that means there's a lot of your targets, right? And then Robert Woods was the third most targets on the team in 11 games. He's not going away. While you may think Cooks is a better receiver, and I agree with you there, they're not just going to not use Woods. And Sammy Watkins, we talked about this a little bit, when you were writing your article. Sammy Watkins only had 70 targets. Now, I don't think Cooks is like Sammy Watkins from an actual receiver standpoint. I think they're very different players with very different skill sets. But even if you take that extra 64 targets and you add it to Sammy's total, which is 70, you're still only talking 134 targets. I don't think all 64 are going to go to the Sammy receiver. So where are the targets coming from? That's where I get stuck.
If you give Brandon Cooks 100 targets, which I realize is still going to be hard to come by, and maybe even somewhere in the 90 plus range, he can put up wide receiver 2-ish numbers for you. If you give him 100, he can probably put up low end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2. But I also realize, again, I'm mostly speculating here. When the season happens, it'll probably be like they run Todd Gurley 1,000 times, and I'm just completely wrong. I also, by the way, and this is totally random, Bob Woods, Robert Woods, whatever you want to call him, he would be a much better NFL player if his name was Bobby Woods. I stand by it. Any NFL player who's named Robert or Rob would be a better player if they just went by Bobby. And the reason I say that is I'm named Bobby, but I'm named Bobby because of my dad's favorite baseball player, which would be Bobby Mercer. And a bunch of sports players have been named Bobby, and most of them have generally been pretty good or above average.
Bobby Thompson, Bobby Richardson, Bobby Orr.
Or
Bobby Hebert.
Yeah, but Bobby has been a very sports-centric name. So if you're Robert, you might as well just go by Bobby if you're playing a sport. That's my take on Bobby's, or Bob Wood, or Robert Woods, or whatever you want to call him.
You guys have a lot more Twitter followers than me, so you're gonna have to start this movement on Twitter. All right, hashtag we want Bobby, and then make sure you tag in Robert Woods. That's what we want.
There's already
his name to Bobby Woods. I'm 100% claiming credit for that.
There's already a hashtag we want Bobby out there, and it's very inappropriate for what we're talking about. I promise you, it's not the way you want to go.
So maybe we don't use that hashtag. Maybe we think of it differently.
Well, also, if you try to use Bobby and Woods, I feel like that would probably be inappropriate too.
Right.
Sick. Get a sick mind, Bobby. I'm just joking. That was bad. Kevin, final thought. I know we were talking about Brandon Cooks going back with Tom Brady. Let's hear from you. How much longer do you think he'll actually play? How many years?
I think it's definitely 2. I wouldn't be surprised with 3.
Let's say it's 3. Right now, you're ranking for Tom Brady in Dynasty and Superflex leagues.
Oh man, that's tough. If I'm giving rankings to other people, he's probably down there in the 20s. But if I'm ranking him for myself, I'm putting him in the teens because I like I said, I play for a 3-year window. So if I think I can get 3 years out of him, then I'm golden.
My rankings always were in that 3-year window, but I love that take because there's definitely the like, I don't want to be made fun of for how high I have this player. I can't be publicly shamed on Twitter, so I need to like put them down lower.
That's right.
And then tell everyone that I have them lower. And if they ask, yeah, I definitely have them lower. But in my mind, like if someone tries to trade me one of these players that I have above them for them, I'm not doing it.
It's worse. I feel like it's worse for Kevin too, because as a Patriots fan, like then you're even accused of being of the homerism.
Yeah, and cheating. I always get accused of cheating.
I don't even know how you would cheat in fantasy football. I guess like for auctions, you could maybe like somehow steal their cheat sheet that they've created for themselves, but I really don't know.
We have to figure out some type of gate to add into like whatever it is people think he's cheating, because it's always like Deflate Gate's always going to come up, right? So it's like, oh, it's like Kevin Gate. Like Kevin just cheated. We don't know what it was, but it was Kevin Gate.
Yeah, I'd say like Auction Gate, like stealing someone's auction totals. Yeah, that's what you're doing, Kevin. I've determined.
Collusion. It's Auction Gate.
Yeah, it's Auction Gate. Somehow you've like gone into John's personal computer, hacked him, and taken all his auction values for different players.
That's fair. That's fair.
Auction Gate 2018. Watch out if you are in Kevin's league. So we've talked a couple older guys who are probably going to be done in the next like 3 or 4 years. Let's talk about some other older guys. Is there anybody that we could see? We think these two are going to have some pretty good years, at least for 2018. We think Brady and Manning are going to be okay. I personally think Roethlisberger will probably have similar numbers. He'll be okay.
I wonder why.
Is there? Yeah, I'm a little biased there. Is there any other guys who've been in the league for a while that we think could see a dip in production this year?
I mean, I'll start off with Rivers, right? We talked about him a little bit. I think that you could start to see a little bit of a dip in his production. Although I say that, I think more dip in his value is more accurate, right? Because I think that he could walk away at any point, but he'll probably keep doing what he's doing until he walks away because he's that type of guy. He's not going to stop throwing the ball. He's definitely always going to do exactly what he wants on the field. So I guess I don't know if his production necessarily will dip. I think eventually he's just going to quit. So maybe that was a terrible take. Can you just edit that out? That would be great.
Sorry, I don't know how to edit. I wish I could.
Yeah, we've lied to you. We actually don't edit the podcast.
It's all real and it's all IRL. Bobby, what do you think?
It's funny because I'm the one who posed this question, but I didn't stop to think about it at all. So now I'm just kind of thinking about it on the spot. And if I had to answer, I would answer someone who I already said we shouldn't talk about because we've already talked about them, which would be Joe Flacco. So I'm not going to do it. But another older guy that I could see kind of falling off would be probably Roethlisberger. And the reason I say that is just because he's had so many different injuries that I could see something happening where he gets maybe injured this season and decides to call it quits. And it wouldn't absolutely shock me. Honestly, as much as I say Eli is being undervalued for his weapons, it wouldn't shock me if Eli starts this season and then next season they have either Kyle Lauletta or Davis Webb or hopefully someone else, because I don't think either of those guys are really the answer. But it wouldn't shock me to see someone there in the next 2 or 3 seasons that's not Eli.
So I have a fire take of all fire takes here.
Yeah.
An older QB. I don't know if he qualifies as being older. I think he does, though. I think he's reached that threshold. I also don't know if it's a dip in production from this year to last year because he was injured, but maybe dip in production for his entire career. Aaron Rodgers. I don't. Now, granted, I don't think there's going to be a lot of these older guys that are going to see a giant dip. If I were to say one, I'd say Phillip Rivers. But I also think that with Aaron Rodgers' injuries recently, we could see another situation from 2017 in which he's missing some games. That's just my opinion. That's just my thought process.
If you want to yell at him, his Twitter handle is @TheNeedyOne.
Watch me be wrong, but listen.
Honestly, I would have said Drew Brees, but it's felt like we already saw him dip last season. But I was going to say that it just feels like that would continue. Like anyone who's expecting him to go back to his numbers from before last season, I think that you're probably in for some disappointment. Because I think they have a good defense now. They can just run the ball with Kamara and be fine.
I actually do expect a little bounce back for Drew Brees this year myself, but that the reason for that is more. I don't know. I think he wants to. I think he kind of wants to show out. I don't think he's really dipped in production or what he's done. I think they changed the offense a little bit, and I think he's still really good.
He actually had some of his best numbers from a per game, like a per attempt and a completion percentage standpoint in a long, long time, or not maybe like 4 or 5 years. He had very, very good numbers if you look at it from an efficiency rating.
Yeah,
plus like Dynasty Wall Street. Obviously, we talk about value almost exclusively, and his value has dipped, and that's what I love about him. Right, you can get him for cheaper than you ever could, and he's still. I think he's still, even if he had his same season as last year. To your point, he's still productive. So
yeah, he's still a high-end quarterback too, who can give you quarterback 1 weeks. And you're not wrong. I don't think necessarily it's skill set so much as play calling. I just don't see a reason for the play calling to change all that much from last season. So I don't think he's going to go back to being an over 4,000 yard passer with 30 touchdowns, but he'll still be a very productive guy for your team.
Can I talk about Roethlisberger for a minute, though?
You can do what you want, Kevin.
I know that you said that he's going to be so Roethlisberger. If I know you're a new listener to Falafel House, but they give me crap because Roethlisberger has always been one of my guys. I draft him just about every redraft league I think I've ever had. So I always have Roethlisberger on my teams. But I think it was 2 years ago I said he was going to be the number 1 quarterback in fantasy. So just ever since then I've been getting crap about him. But I will say this. Drafting Mason Rudolph, and no matter what your feelings are about Rudolph this year, I truly believe you will see a very motivated Ben Roethlisberger this year. It happened with Brady when they brought in Garoppolo, and I think that Pittsburgh's smartly doing the same exact thing.
If you look at his numbers so he had a really shitty opening 2017, Roethlisberger did. After game 4 or 5, he was just on fire. Or maybe I think it was actually gave him 5 or 6. Now I think about it. Yeah, I mean, he just tore it up. But granted, a lot is Antonio Brown, but I mean, he was just on fire. And then you heard him in his in an interview that he had with a Pittsburgh sports radio show, and he was talking about I know I said I was thinking about retiring, but I'm ready to go. Them drafting Mason Rudolph and him being oh my gosh, why would you draft that? We're trying to win now. I think you're right, Kevin. Man, they can let a fire under him.
So what you're saying is he'll pull an Alex Smith, which is that anytime someone's drafted to replace Alex Smith, he has a career year.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, except Roethlisberger's been in the same system for a while, and he has your boy Juju. I mean, I don't know how you can be down on Roethlisberger when Juju Smith-Schuster's on that team.
I'm not down on him because of the offensive pieces. I'm just down on him because he constantly talks about retirement, and at some point it has to be true.
He's a drama queen, man. That's all he does is that shit. All he does is shit like that.
I guess it's kind of like that friend. Everyone who has that friend who says oh, you guys have just insulted me. I'm leaving. And then they come back a second later.
I'm going home.
Exactly. And then a second later they come back and they're like, JK, I'm still here. I love you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, or that fantasy guy that tells you he's going to lose every freaking week, and then his team's probably wins the championship or whatever. But
this is an aside. In most of my leagues, I have an unofficial rule. I've been guilty of it myself sometimes. But if you say I'm going to lose before it's over, I think that should be a loss. You just lost right there.
That's a concession right there. You are conceding.
Because I've had that happen so many times, and then that person has gone on to win, and it just annoys me. Can't explain why it annoys the crap out of me, but it does.
It's the reverse jinx. I don't know how you can not be a fan of that. That's one of the greatest moves in fantasy football. I love pulling the reverse jinx.
All right. So I love where this is going, guys. We're running low on time. I do want to touch on what you're doing over at Falafel House there. You just mentioned it a second ago, Kevin, but you told us something about how Falafel House started, and then you had an interesting guest. Give the people a little bit about what Falafel House, what you guys are doing over there, and then tell us that interesting story.
So Falafel House podcast and the website, I guess we started as a fantasy football league. So Falafel actually stands for Fantasy Life App Fantasy Football League. So I don't know if any of you have ever been on the Fantasy Life app, but it was an app created essentially by Matthew Berry. It's a social media type site where you can go on and post, questions or memes or get into chats and things like that about fantasy football. So back when it was brand new, a bunch of these guys were starting a fantasy football league. This guy Steve, who's one of the co-hosts of the show, started the league and took Falafel as the name, and there we go. So that's how it started. A couple of the guys from the league and I all wanted to get together and do a podcast. We literally would sit in this chat almost as much as Bobby's on Twitter. Like it's a sickening amount. So yeah, so we thought that maybe we would start a podcast and talk about some of the things that we talk in the chat on actual, tell other people. So we started with 5 people, and 2 of them have since been booted or left, whichever probably they say they left. We say they got booted. Yeah, and about 5 episodes in, we had Matthew Berry on. It was miserable. It's like, I don't know. It's like you think something in your head and how it's going to happen, and then it goes the complete opposite because you have no preparation, no skill, no talent, and really no ability. So that's kind of how it went. But we've been doing redraft podcasts. We're an all year round podcast, so we usually do an episode either a week or every other week during the off season, depending on what it is. When we're in the season, we're usually 2 or 3 episodes a week. So we Sal, Steve, and I have no problem putting out content, that's for sure. The website, falafelhouse.com. We got writers who basically have no place else to go who come and write for us because we don't pay anything, and we're basically like a dumping ground for any of rambling thoughts. So if you guys have any of those, feel free to send over some articles. And the one cool thing that we're doing, and we talked about Scott Fishbowl and the Fantasy Life and Fantasy Cares and stuff like that. But one cool thing we're going to be doing coming up, I don't know if you guys have, Bobby, I don't know if you've seen the post, but we're going to be hosting a 24-hour podcast during the start of the Scott Fishbowl to raise money for Fantasy Cares. So we're going to be broadcasting for 24 hours straight. I have no idea how this is going to go. I fully hope that you guys will tune in to like hours 23 and 24. So because it should be
plenty of stuff, man. It sounds great, though. It's really awesome what you're doing with that, though, by the way.
Yeah, I saw that, and we've talked about it. My college radio did something similar. It was called 40 Hour, I think it was 40 Hour, where basically a DJ on the radio would stay up for that amount of time, and it would raise money for charity. So it was similar. I never did it, but my good friend Zach at Lopsided Trades was one of the DJs one year, and I just remember all the delirious stuff that he started saying, and it was very entertaining. So if you're going to check it out, you should check out pretty much every hour if you have time. But if you only have time for a few hours, my personal recommendation is, as Kevin said, check out those last few hours because that's when they're going to be delirious and it's just going to be hilarious.
We are looking for sponsors and stuff, so hit up at Falafel House. That's FLAFL House on Twitter if you're interested. It's just going to be a lot of fun. So
yeah, and all the money goes to help get kids toys.
Yeah, can't beat that.
For a great cause, amazing stuff. Thanks so much, Kevin, for that, and we're excited to listen in. We're running out of time, so we got to go to our last segment, and this is our Afterburn segment. As I'm sure you're aware, every week we burn a segment of society. I know Bobby's fired up after this poll and after his traveling going on. Did you want to lead us off, or should we let our guests?
It's up to you, Kevin. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. You had a bunch. You did a whole Twitter poll, so
yeah,
you're collecting burns here.
It's a rare week that I have multiples, but I was traveling to Chicago and I just had a bunch of things happen to me that I really didn't like. So I had to put out a poll. The poll included people reclining aggressively on airlines, joggers jogging past you and not stopping and kind of like shoving you out of the way, and being stuck in traffic. And I was talking about like non-moving traffic, not even like bumper to bumpers, just literally stopped and people are getting out of their cars. But the winner was line cutting. What's interesting about line cutting in particular, the reason I brought this up is I was in line to check my bag on the way back from Chicago with my wife. And we went to one of those automated machines, and usually it's just like drop it off and you walk away. But there's a long line, so we got in line and we're standing there. And another line starts to form to like the right of us. And just as we get to the front, another guy starts to like cut around us. And I don't know, I can't even imitate how aggressively I said this, but I said like, just so you know, there's a line. And I said it aggressively enough that my wife said, I've never seen you be that assertive about anything in your life. And I just said, I don't know. There's something. So all those other stuff, like it's annoying, but it's not really like breaking rules, maybe just unwritten rules. But a line is there so that there's order of things, and you're clearly waiting in line because you're trying to do something. So by cutting lines, you're breaking the order more or less in my head of like the universe.
This is like society.
Yeah, no, there's a reason lines form, and that's because people are waiting to do something. And by breaking that line, you're saying, I'm better than you, I am more important than you, and my needs are more than yours. And it's just wrong. And so it just really bothers me. If you're a line cutter, I really dislike you. And I also am, I guess, obligated to talk about the, now I'm going to mess up the name, but the chit and cut, is that it? The thing from Curb?
Chit and cut.
Is it chit and cut? Where basically you start talking to someone that you like kind of know in line so that you can cut in front of them or cut behind them. If you do that, you're also a terrible person because everyone else there has been waiting in line. Don't just go, oh, I know someone in line, so I get to go ahead of you. It's fine. No, lines mean order, and order is important. That is, and I can't even tell you, like, I'd been at a wedding. I had been drinking most of the night. I had also walked like 7 or 8 miles in Chicago and did not sleep well, did not drink coffee that morning because I really just didn't feel good. So like imagine that level, and that's how like crankily I told this guy like, no, there's a fucking line, you get in it.
Bob Vance from Vance Refrigeration tried to do the chat and cut one time on Pretzel Day, and Stanley and Michael Scott bonded over destroying him that one day.
Yeah, that was probably me and the people behind me in line. They're like, yeah, they probably were like, this guy is my favorite guy right now.
That's the thing. So, you ended up being the hero. That's great.
Yeah. Well, no.
Not all heroes wear capes, Kevin.
Actually, I think the guy, I don't even know what you called him, the guy who does the bag check saw it, and he might have thought it was too aggressive because I got up there and I honestly just planked my bag down. And then he was like, good morning to you too. And I was like, oh shit, I didn't say good morning. I'm not being polite now.
You know what? That's a dick move, but you don't have to say good morning to anyone, dude. Fuck that shit. Okay? Like, good morning to you too. That's so fucking passive aggressive. I hate that.
I realized though that I was being like cranky because normally I would say good morning to him or at least like say hi or something.
Listen.
So like I just told off this other guy and then I just like planked I was so like flabbergasted by the line cutter that I couldn't even remember manners.
People in Chicago are amazing, right? It's a great city. Everyone's super nice. We live in New York. You don't have to say good morning to a single soul ever. And people should know that.
I'm told that I like belong in Chicago or Ohio, so maybe I'm just in the wrong city. But yeah, that's my burn of the week. If you really want to hear the other stories behind the other three, feel free to tweet at me. As Kevin said, I'm always on Twitter at RecFantasy.
Kevin, you got a burn?
Yeah, so in preparation for the show and the burn, I was thinking about what kind of things really piss me off, and there's a lot. I'm a New Englander. I'm angry too. I may not be as angry as a New Yorker, but we Bostonians get pretty pissed off from time to time. And I'll tell you, the one thing lately that's been really, really driving me nuts is a personal space issue that, given your current struggles in Chicago, Bobby, I'm sure you can appreciate. So I've been trying to get a little healthier lately. I've been working out. And, generally I either work out at home or I go to the gym or go for a run, right? So if I go to the gym, I'm working out usually on either a treadmill or an arc trainer or elliptical, whatever you want to, some kind of a cardio machine. I'm not a big weights guy, right? What drives me friggin' nuts is when people see an entire line of machines that are open and I'm on one, say on the end, and someone comes and works out directly frigging next to you. Why do they do that? How do these people not realize that there is a space needed for your workout? If at all possible, you need to leave at least one machine space on both sides, by the way. It's not on one side. It's on both sides.
Absolutely.
I haven't been to the gym recently, but you're preaching to the choir.
Yeah, and this goes for bathrooms too, by the way. If you walk into a bathroom and someone's in a stall, you don't take the stall next to them. You take one over.
Urinals too.
Urinals, same deal. It's literally anything. If you can give someone personal space, just do it. It's common courtesy. Well, that's my burn. It pisses me off. Why do people work out next to me? And inevitably, it's the smelly guy too, right? Like the guy who just ripped like 3 butts in the parking lot and walked in to work out and smells like cigarettes, smells like BO, and he's right next to me. And now I got to spend 45 minutes next to this asshole.
You're talking to the guy.
Definitely like a 22-year-old college student, right? Like,
right. Right.
When I went to the gym, I would purposely, because I could while I was waiting to go to business school, and I'm going to start going again, at least I keep telling myself that. We'll see if it actually happens. But you're talking to the guy who would purposely go at odd hours of the day so that I didn't have anyone in the gym for that exact reason. It was just my space. No one was watching me work out. No one was waiting for the machines. It was just, I plug in my headphones and just go.
Before I got married, I used to go to the grocery store at like Tuesday night at like midnight, find the all night one so that I didn't have to deal with anyone. Because the grocery store is another place where people don't recognize personal space. So
that's a great time to go. I love going at night. Shopping at night is like amazing. Absolutely
phenomenal. The shelves are always fully stocked and there's no one there to bother you.
Yep. Or the shelves are being stocked at the same time, so anybody's there to ask a question. Like, where's this? Yeah, it's over there. Oh, perfect.
What we're learning is that everyone here on the Afterburners pod just hates other people.
Speaking of that, my burn involves other people. So I'll make mine quick because I know we're running out of time. It shocks me to this day that I'm still getting stopped in the year 2018 and being asked for directions. New York is a very simple city to navigate around, with the exception of like everything south of like Houston Street, which is kind of weird. You get north of that, anything from Midtown all the way up to like the freaking Bronx, you know how to get away. It's you know how to get around. It's basically numbered streets and just walk towards whatever number is higher or lower. It's that easy. So I was stopped the other day. Person asked me, which way towards this? I'm like, yeah, I don't mind, even though I have headphones in. Obviously, I don't want you to see me or talk to me. Answer the question. It's up 3/1. Like, get it together. The thing that completely dumbfounded me, though, kid's daughter, or I'm assuming daughter, smartphone, texting left and right in front of them, just like this, like doing her thing, probably talking to her girlfriends. And I was just like, I wanted to say so bad, all right, man, like, I'm pretty sure this phone over here has Google Maps, but whatever. Like, ask me, the guy who's walking by himself trying to get somewhere. If you have to ask for directions when visiting somewhere or just in general, you're probably not with the times and you're getting burned.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was stopped the other day when I was walking my dog, who also really doesn't like people. So that's why he's a good fit for me. But this person got aggressively in my face and was like, do you know where this Katina is? And I just said, no, I don't. And also, I really wanted to say, do you have a smartphone and Google Maps? Because when I went to Italy, for example, and I didn't know where things were, I plugged it into my smartphone.
Exception to that rule, really old people. Like, I feel bad for them. They're okay. They can ask for directions.
No, yeah, I would say if you're over the age of like 60, yeah, you're good. But if you're like, the person that asked me, I'm guessing like 45, maybe 10, 15.
That's no excuse.
Plus, your daughter's right there, about 15, 16, that has a smartphone out. Come on.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you're over the age of like 60, if you're retirement age, I'll give you a pass. If you're under retirement age, learn how to use Google Maps.
I'm just thinking, like, I live in a nice cul-de-sac neighborhood, and my dad got lost here 6 times, and that's with trying to use his phone. So I'm just thinking, like, those people, I'll give them a pass
absolutely a pass for the golden age people. So guys, this was a lot of fun. Great show today, Kevin. Thank you so much for being on, man. We'd love to have you on again, man. We're going to do a lot of shows during the season as well. Hopefully you can come on.
Yeah, anytime, man. Thanks for having me. This was great.
Definitely, anytime as well. Go ahead and give us where the people can find you. Bobby's going to follow up, and then we're going to close out.
At Wally Central on Twitter. You can find me tweeting at Bobby's disparaging remarks about Brandon Cooks. FalafelHouse.com. You can check that out. Find the Falafel House podcast on any of your podcast feeds, and check out the Dynasty Trade Calculator podcast feed, where you can find Dynasty Wall Street.
Yep. And as I mentioned earlier, guys, check out both of those shows. I'd particularly like to shout out Dynasty Wall Street. And this might be narcissistic, but they give me a shout out because I give them fake points every week. And apparently that's become a part of their show, where I become an unofficial judge. So, they'll start saying things like, I love Juju. Bobby, please give me points. It's very empowering, actually. So you should check it out. See them grovel for points. It's great. And you can find me at Rek Fantasy. That's REKED Fantasy. You can find my work on Dynasty League Football, as well as 2 quarterbacks.
Another shameless plug. I started listening to Dynasty Wall Street a little bit about 2 weeks ago, and that's because Bobby recommended it so highly. Great listen. Cannot recommend it enough, guys. You can find me at The Needy One. Also, this is the Afterburners Pod. Find us at Afterburners Pod. Any emails, the afterburnerspod@gmail.com. Finally, don't forget to find us on Podbean, Stitcher, and iTunes. And as Bobby said, give us 10 reviews. We need those 10 reviews.
Yep,
And we'll
10
make a
reviews,
shirt.
and we will make T-shirts, and we will we'll actually send them over to the Great American Puerto Rico, because they have a shirt operation that all the proceeds go to getting Puerto Rico back up and running. So your reviews could help Puerto Rico get electricity.
For a good cause. Again, thanks so much for having me. Thank you to Kevin Cotillo for joining us. That's a wrap. Thanks so much for listening. Have a good weekend.
Keep it classy, Fantasy Twitter. Till next time.